Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
We announced the winner of our holiday giveaway last week. Congratulations, Parker Ritz. Your Everyone Watches Women's Sports t-shirt is on the way to you.
Thank you, everyone, for entering and sharing. We hope you continue to share our podcast and people continue to listen. So we appreciate everyone who entered.
Yeah, we really do have the best listeners who reach out to us, who participate in these things. It goes such a long way for us, and we see you all, and we just appreciate it so much that you're willing to do some things for us in order for us to be successful. So we really appreciate it. How are you doing?
It's been a tough week.
It has been a week. Do you want to tell our listeners about it?
Yes. Would like to honor my Nan in some way. My grandmother, my dad's mom, unfortunately passed away this past week, and we had to say goodbye to her. It's been a very emotional week, and I got the call early last weekend. We flew back to New Jersey to be with family and to attend the services, which I'm really happy we did. Got some of that closure saying goodbye to her, but it's just been really hard seeing my family in pain and obviously me be in pain and feeling the grief. So I've just been trying to feel it. What I've also been trying to do is just remember the good times with my grandma and think about all the memories. I have been close with my grandma since my whole life. They used to live in upstate New York, and we would always make trips there, and then they moved down full-time to Long Beach Island, and so many summers down the shore with them and vacations. And both her and Poppy, my grandpa, who's still with us, would drive to so many of my games growing up, whether it be high school, college, and all the family parties. Those two together were just the most loving couple. I know my Poppy is struggling right now, which is really hard, but they have been together since they were 15 and 16. They got married at ages, I think, 21 and 19.
Yep.
And February next month would have been my grandmother's 80th birthday and their 60th wedding anniversary. So I'm really sad they didn't get that together. And it's, I've always said to you, it is amazing how much they love each other. My whole life, every time you're with them, you just see how much they love each other. To see Poppy without Nan now is just going to be really hard.
For sure. That is one thing about your grandparents that was really immediate for me to notice. They are such models for a marriage. Growing up, I didn't have many models of what a happy marriage looked like, and they were them. And it's amazing because they met when they were so young. They continued to love each other, and they had their roles, and they made those roles work and had so much respect for each other. It was amazing to watch. And on top of that, I think the other thing that kind of stands out to me is your grandmother, your Nan, loved family so much. This past week has been difficult, but to watch your family come together and to see it, I think that's exactly what she would want. It's very difficult to now see your Poppy, your grandfather, without her, because it's never been that way. But I think the most important thing you can do is be there for people, and luckily your family does that so well.
Yeah, they do. Just to give some background, my dad is one of 5, so my Nan and Poppy raised 5 wonderful people. My dad gave the eulogy, and he did a great job of just diving into her life and their family's life and what that looked like. I know she meant the world to her kids and her grandchildren. I'm one of 12 grandkids on that side. Obviously, family showing up to the services was so nice, but the amount of friends that showed up, their friends, and just came up to us and talked to us and shared stories. Like, it was so nice to have that at the repast. I've heard about some of these people. I've never met all their friends, and then some of their friends I haven't seen in a while, and seeing them, and it's just unfortunate that a death is what brings all those people together sometimes. But I just appreciated them sharing how much they loved my Nan, and I'm just gonna continue to try to keep the memories alive. And as hard as it is, because I think when I first found out, my body was not allowing me to believe it's true. And then going there and processing that, it's going to take some time to really process. And I just feel for my whole family. Luckily, to your point, we all are there for each other and showed up. I know for that reason that everyone's going to be okay. And it's also going to be a difficult time for the foreseeable future.
Anytime I think a family loses its matriarch, it's really hard. It's just really hard. And I think funerals are really important. And I didn't always used to think this, but like funerals are so important to get the closure, to hear those stories, to be together with people. There's something really beautiful about it. In a really sad time, it's nice to have that opportunity to connect with others.
One way I was thinking that I can honor her moving forward is anyone who knows her knows that if you visited that house, she just needed to know that everyone was okay, make sure everyone had food. I know I can't do as well as she ever did. She'd be like, I'm just going to make a little something. And she would have this whole platter out. No one went hungry when we would visit. I just want to embrace that a little more, and the like hosting being the host, piece. And she's just has been so welcoming every time someone enters her home. I've had friends coming into that house forever. My whole life, we would bring friends down the shore, and she was always the most welcoming person. I just want to embody that more. The way she just oversaw and loved the entire family. That is something else that I think I can carry her with me.
I'm sorry it's been a rough week. And I'm sorry it happened.
Same. So I love you, Nan. I hope you're listening somewhere. And
do you think she's listening? Was she a big sports fan?
I bet she is now. She was. She loved us and watching our sports. And I just miss her and going to miss her. And
if Notre Dame football wins the national championship, she definitely had a hand in it.
And Notre Dame, my family, I've talked about this, is a huge Notre Dame fan, and yes, the football team is going to the national championship. The game against Penn State, that semifinals game, was the day after the services, and my whole family was obviously watching. Everyone said Nan helped them
that
win
ball
at the end, because
through.
that was such a close game. But hopefully Notre Dame can pull it off in her honor as well.
Nan's the only one who can get us to talk about men's sport on this podcast as well.
Yes, so there's no good way to end talking about that. But with that, I guess we can move on to the sports section of our podcast and dive into some highlights for this week.
Let's do it.
All right. So switching gears, we are going to talk about NCAA women's basketball to start us off this week. There was a thriller of a game, LSU number 6 versus Tennessee number 2. LSU maintained their undefeated record, which at the time of recording is 18-0. With an 89-87 win in this game. Obviously, you can tell from the score the game was close, but this game was a battle the whole way through.
I feel like we're not talking enough about how good LSU is.
When teams can pull off close wins, you know they're good, because that is not an easy thing to do. This is the second game we've seen. I mean, Stanford, they really came back and won it. A very close game at the end, and then this game being so close at the end to pull that off. They're having a hell of a season.
Yes. And I also feel like LSU plays to the level of the team that they're playing against. So Stanford wasn't a top 25 team, and they somehow made it close. So I think if there's one weakness, that's LSU's weakness. But they are looking good. Let's get into this game.
Yes. So this was Tennessee's second top 10 opponent in 5 days. And they started this game off slow. In the second quarter, they overcame an 18-point deficit. They ended the second quarter 46-39. So as you can see, at halftime, it was close.
46-39 LSU.
Yes. But to be fair, the fourth quarter is really where the action took place. So we're going to fast forward to that and talk about what happened at the end of the game for LSU to win. The fourth quarter started with a score of 67-62 and LSU was up. Tennessee took 2-point leads twice over the last 4 minutes of the game. So this game was really going back and forth in the last couple minutes. And they tied the game 3 times in the final 3 minutes. So with about 35 seconds left in the game, Tennessee stole the ball at half court, quickly passed it up to Talasia Cooper, who hit a 3 to tie the game. The stadium was going nuts. So at that point, the game was tied at 87. With 1 second left, LSU's junior Kaylin Gilbert hit an acrobatic shot to put them back on top. Not only was the shot crazy, but she's at the top of the key. You know, she was throwing the ball through her legs. She's clearly trying to figure out what she's going to do. But it was so interesting because I feel like a lot of times in plays like this, the rest of the offense tries to spread out and kind of clear. The paint was packed though. So she beats her defender, but then goes up to 2 more defenders. You could tell Tennessee was trying not to foul and swiped at the ball, but Caitlin twisted her body as she was in the air and kind of threw the ball over her head and it goes in. It was absolutely ridiculous.
And such a heartbreak for Tennessee, who's playing incredible basketball right now.
It was really upsetting. It was an unbelievable shot. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out on the highlights or on Instagram. It's been posted several times. Tennessee actually did, believe it or not, have a chance at the end of the game to...
It was a good chance.
Yeah, to tie it again. So they took a timeout to advance the ball. And the inbounder, I'm impressed with the lob pass that she throws it up. And unfortunately, Tennessee could not capitalize on that shot. The shot was short, hit the front of the rim, and you could just tell it deflated the whole stadium because that was the end of the game there. Talking about leading scores, there were a lot of 20-point scores in this game. So fifth-year student Jewel Spear from Tennessee led all scores with 25 points. And redshirt sophomore Talasia Cooper added 24 points. So they both had big games. And then for LSU, senior Anissa Morrow led that team with 23 points. And Kaylin Gilbert, who eventually had the game-winning shot, added 22 points as well.
Yeah, and the Tennessee coach, I think in the press conference after, said something like, we are 2 points away from being a top 5 team. And she wasn't happy about it. She wasn't saying it in like a nice way. Right. It just stinks to be in that. The SEC is so incredibly difficult. As a South Carolina fan, I don't want to play Tennessee. They're so good. And it's hard to just gain that momentum in the SEC. However, if they can find ways to squeak out big wins, especially in the SEC, it's going to set them up so much for when we get into March Madness and when we get into the NCAA tournament. The other thing that I want to add is that Kim Mulkey, in true Kim Mulkey fashion, said that she hoped the Tennessee coach who was pregnant hoped that she went into labor on the court.
She's so unhinged.
She is unhinged.
Also, Kim Caldwell, who's the name of the Tennessee head coach. I saw that Candace Parker had also tweeted, and people were going nuts on it, that she said she would want to play for her because Candace played for Tennessee, so the connection there. But to me, that's an honor. If Candace Parker said she would want to play for me, I would be beside myself. Obviously, I'm not Kim Caldwell and I'm not a D1 coach, but it's pretty cool that Candace is continuing to show her support as well.
And that helps with recruiting. A tweet like that, a mention like that, definitely helps to show other kids who might be looking at Tennessee like, well, if one of the best of all time wants to play for her, why don't I?
Yeah, and this is her first year as the head coach for Tennessee, and she's doing a hell of a job. Anytime there's a coaching change, it takes time to get your groove and figure out your team. I think she's doing a great job. Tennessee has lost some close ones, but they could be a scary team down the line.
Yeah,
like for
sure.
Some teams, they can continue to be really good. So excited to continue to watch them play.
For sure. Let's get into some hockey. I am your new hockey girl. I'm so sold. I am so in.
Look at me. I even got myself, if you're watching right now, a PWHL, I'm trying to lift it up, PWHL sweatshirt that I got in person.
Yeah, and I've got my Montreal Victoire shirt on. It was really, really fun. So the PWHL has a takeover tour that they're doing, and one of their stops was in Denver. So this past Sunday, we were able to go to the game. It was Montreal Victoire versus the Minnesota Frost. This game broke the record for attendance at a pro women's hockey game in the U.S. Specification on in the U.S. because in Canada they're getting a lot of people to go. But in the U.S. with over 14,000 people in Denver, it was so amazing to be part of it.
For sure. We got food outside the stadium at a bar like across the street before the game, and people were lined up out the door. So the doors opened an hour before the game, 12 o'clock. And at, I would say like 11:20, people started lining up outside, which just shows how excited people were. And we were like, wow, that is a lot of people. We've talked about before, we play softball with a bunch of hockey players in Denver. There's a huge adult league. We saw in the stands at the game, there's also a lot of young girls who play hockey, and they showed up. And our friend Maria was also saying a lot of the merchandise has been selling out at these games. I mean, we went into the merchandise store and it was so packed.
It was a frenzy.
Yeah, it was so cool. And so many people in the stands had gear on. I just love seeing it. Like, I was getting emotional, honestly, seeing how many people were at that game. For reference, Ball Arena has a capacity of 21,000. Over 14,000 people were there. That is a lot. It was packed. Like, it was truly packed, and it was so fun.
Yeah, and the best part was there were a lot of great parts in the arena, but the best part is multiple times there was chants from the crowd of we want a team.
Yes, especially after they posted that we had the attendance record immediately and the whole stadium was chanting it. We want a team.
It was so cool. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And it was so much fun.
Yeah. Both teams put on a show. They were so good. You know, when you watch any sport live, it's just more exciting than on the TV. We had really good seats. So seeing these women skate, they're just so talented. And obviously I know that they're pros, but to see this speed in person, it was just so cool.
Yeah. I was like, I want to come to every hockey game. I would come to
I
every
absolutely would.
single women's hockey game. And I know I say that about the NWSL. If we get a team, we're going to have no money because I'm going to be like, we need to get season tickets for hockey and we need season tickets for the NWSL, and I'm going to continue to push for the WNBA, and then we'll need to get season tickets for that. Let's get into this game a little bit. So coming into this game, Montreal was at the top of the standings and Minnesota was at number 2. So top 2 matchup for where they stood coming into the match, and Minnesota ended up beating Montreal 4-2.
And they scored their 4th goal with under 5 minutes to play. So it was a really close game. And for a while, it was tied at 2-2 for a while. It was just a great game.
And back and forth. Minnesota scored, Montreal scored, back and forth. And then, that 4th goal was towards the way end of the game. I really thought maybe Montreal could force it into overtime, which would have been really fun. Defender Maggie Flaherty from Minnesota scored the game winner. It was her first goal of the season, and Minnesota's starting goalie Maddie Rooney made 21 saves. So very different from what we've talked about last week when we were talking about the Frost. They looked like a completely different team, and they were hitting each other.
Oh my gosh.
It was getting rowdy in there. They were letting them push each other back and forth. They were exchanging some words. I loved every second.
Yes, and I feel like they skate and you're moving around so quickly and they'll hit body parts off of each other and just go flying and spinning around. It was a very physical game.
Yeah, but we both left and we were like, that was so much fun.
So fun.
Oh, man. And it really made me proud to see Denver show up like that, because there's always a fear, right? Especially doing this podcast. We now live, I feel like, even more in a bubble where we're just surrounded by people who love women's sports, and we go to events that are very women's sports focused, and it's a bunch of like-minded people. But to see families showing up, to see other teams showing up, to see regular schmegular people showing up to support was really awesome.
And people of all ages, honestly.
Yes. In front of us, there were definitely like 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then behind us were like a bunch of little kids.
Yeah, it was so fun.
The Minnesota Frost now lead the Victoire by 2 points, and they have taken back the number 1 spot in the league. And they actually have a rematch coming this Friday night.
Oh
Montreal takes on Minnesota Frost again, which will be really fun at Montreal. So keep your eyes on that one. You mentioned this, but I also got emotional a few times while watching. The amount of people, the chanting that was happening. And then at one point they showed a service dog.
Oh my gosh.
Who was just so cute on the camera. And the kid he was with was so excited. And then they just kept showing the service dog and everyone was just screaming. And I was like, I'm crying. This is just so pure. Whoever runs the camera there did a great job.
Yeah, it was truly amazing.
So with that, I am on a hockey kick and I want to keep talking about hockey. So let's get into some college hockey. I want to specifically highlight the Women's Beanpot Ice Hockey Championship that's actually starting today when we release, and then we'll wrap up next Tuesday. So this is played at the TD Garden in Boston, and the women's tournament began all the way back in 1979.
Can you tell me why it's called a Beanpot?
Yes. So this is hosted in Boston, as I mentioned, and Boston is known as Beantown. Did you know that?
I did not. Like beans, like the beans you eat?
Yeah, like the beans you eat. That's exactly what it's named after.
I love beans.
So it's called the Beanpot because it's named after Beantown. And back in colonial days, the Puritans who settled in New England, they observed a Sabbath and they weren't allowed to work or cook on Sundays. So they prepared giant bowls of baked beans on Saturday and then kept them warm throughout the weekend. And because I guess everyone was farting in Boston, they called it Beantown.
Wow. I can't even imagine that. It probably smelled so bad.
I'm like, to get the name Beantown just because you had to cook them on Saturdays is not the real reason. It's because of the farts.
Probably, if we're being honest.
So this Beanpot is teams located in the Boston area playing. It's a cool tournament to have because these teams may not be in the same leagues, but they get to play each other. So it's always the same 4 teams. It's Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern, and Harvard. Northeastern is coming into the Beanpot. I love that. Coming into the Beanpot. They're coming into the Beanpot chasing their 20th tournament win. So they are dominant in this. They won last year. They beat BU in overtime. They won their second Beanpot in a row and their third in 4 years. So they're here to go on a tear. They do have the most amount of championships. However, Boston College and Boston University are both ranked higher than Northeastern coming into this. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Northeastern has 19 championships. Harvard has 15. Boston College has 8. And Boston University has 2. Both Boston College and Boston University are ranked higher above Northeastern. Harvard's ranked below. The other cool thing, we've been talking about the PWHL. There are a lot of Beanpot alums.
Do you think they claim that name? I am a Beanpot alum.
They should just say fart pot.
Stop. Maybe only you have that problem.
There's a whole song about it, Danielle. I am not the only one.
I'm aware. I used to sing it as a child.
The Beanpot is just so funny. I'm so happy we're talking about this. Okay, so there are nearly 30 Beanpot alums playing in the PWHL this season. This is a cool event that they get to do in Boston, which takes me right into what I'm looking forward to this week. I'm looking forward to the fart pot.
Carolyn, it's the Beanpot.
I'm looking forward to the Beanpot, and you can still buy tickets on Ticketmaster. So if you are in the Boston area, you should look into going into these games. Today on Tuesday, January 14th, Boston University takes on Harvard at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and Boston College takes on Northeastern at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Then the following Tuesday, January 21st, is the championship round, which will be held at TD Garden, a huge, huge venue. Very cool for the women to be able to play there. And those games, the consolation game is at 4:30 p.m. and then the championship game is at 7:30 p.m. So if you are in the Boston area and you're looking for something to do, be like me and become a really big hockey fan because it is so fun.
I know. I wish they were in Denver. Yeah. I would totally go.
Yeah. Very, very cool. What are you looking forward to this week, Dee?
So Unrivaled finally kicks off this week. I feel like the build for Unrivaled has been so much.
Their marketing has been top notch. Can you remind people what Unrivaled is?
Yes. Unrivaled is a new 3-on-3 league. This will be the first year that they're doing this. The league was founded by Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart. Part of the reason they put this together was to allow the WNBA players to play domestically and to bypass the complications from the WNBA's prioritization rule for players who choose to play overseas in the WNBA offseason, which a lot of players end up having to do because they don't get paid enough during the regular season. So if this is me, I would be very happy to stay in the US unless I was looking for a reason to go abroad. But
if not everyone, a family,
not everyone wants to do that. So this is a really great way for the players to continue to play and get paid in the WNBA offseason. So this kicks off on Friday, January 17th, and the Mist will play the Lunar Owls at 7 p.m. Eastern on TNT. And Rose will play Vinyl at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on TNT. To name a few players, Arike Gumbawale plays on Vinyl.
And Arike, I think, is going to dominate in this
I mean, her one-on-one play. So for 3-on-3, I agree. I think she's going to play so well. Really just can't wait to see the different combinations of players playing together.
Yeah, and I just think it's going to be cool to see players who maybe have played together in college but haven't played together since playing this league. I think it's going to highlight some areas of improvement for some players because 3-on-3 is a totally different game. I'm really excited to watch, and I'm also just so pumped because, like we said, Unrivaled's rollout of this has been top-notch spectacular.
Yes, I agree. These games will also be streamed on Max, so there are a few places you can check them out. I don't know about you, but I'm excited, and I hope everyone tunes in to see what Unrivaled is all about.
That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends and keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.